Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Toon Talk. I hope you're all keeping well. I'm going solo this week. I'm going to talk about Saturday's result against Man United. I'm going to talk about what I think needs to change, and then I'll look ahead to the Wolves game this weekend. If that's the kind of thing you're interested in hearing about, then do subscribe and keep watching. So I spoke about this last week. I really think we went into the international break in positive spirits after the 3-1 win over Burnley. I felt the criticism Steve Bruce received, between the dreadful display against Spurs and Burnley, it really prompted a change, and I saw a more organised system in place, and I could see how we were beginning to establish a style of play to get the best out of our players. In particular, the new additions. When signing Callum Wilson, I had all the hopes in the world that he and Alan St-Maximin could be a dynamic duo and inject some creativity into our game. So I was excited with what I saw in that match. Intelligent running and link-up play between the two of them. I mean, this partnership, it could prove vital this season. A dynamic attacking pair is what we really needed. And amongst the performance as a whole, other players, they seem to be thriving too. Joe Linton, Shelvey, Jamal Lewis, they all had a decent game. And the squad were actually playing on the front foot. And they looked comfortable doing so. So then we had, the international break, and as much as I hoped we could build on this kind of performance, sadly, it's sometimes just not as easy as that. Going into the Man United game, I did worry that after such a heavy defeat against Spurs before the international break, the side would have the firepower to redeem themselves against us, not to mention the huge spotlight at the moment on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the wheel, and his days at Old Trafford, they could be limited with all the negative criticism on his managerial decisions. He and the team really had something to prove. On the flip side, we had some key players back from injury. We'd finally shown early signs of developing an identity against Burnley, and our new additions this season, they're just integrating match by match. So let's talk about the Man United game properly. We suffered a late collapse despite taking an early lead with the Luke Shaw own goal. Things just took a turn, as you guys all saw, and we conceded 3 goals in the last 10 minutes of the game, so it ended 4-1. At the moment, it really feels like our Premier League campaign is going 1 step forward and then 2 steps back, like with a good result and then a really poor display. And I feel like our poor displays, like the one on Saturday, they just remind me of our fundamental issues that will definitely prevent us from any consistent form. I'm still deflated from Saturday's game. I guess the biggest frustration for me still remains in our style of play, or lack of, really. There's no clear approach, there's no plan, and that's generally speaking, let alone for specific games or parts of a game. So after taking the early lead, why did it end so badly? I think what I'm going to do is just split this up. So here's 3 reasons why I feel we ended up coming away with a 4-1 defeat. Firstly, as I just mentioned, I think it comes back to our style of play. Steve Bruce has been criticised for saying that the players are used to playing a certain system, being ultra defensive with Benitez. Then when trying new things and tweaking the setup, he's been criticised for getting it wrong. I think we need to remind ourselves of the timeline. It's been 15 months. We're 15 months into his managerial reign at Newcastle, and I don't think anyone can blame us fans for our concerns. We still haven't established a style of play, and honestly, I'm just exhausted talking about it. And we had a successful transfer window, in my opinion. So yeah, we needed a backup striker ideally, but January is just round the corner. Aside from that, Steve Bruce has got the best forwards he's ever worked with in his career. I guess the real question is, can he get the combination right depending on the opposition? West Ham and Brighton, they play very different football in terms of the threat they really offer. But Steve Bruce retained the same starting 11 out of what? Loyalty, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know. And then after the Burnley win, going into Man United, the side remained unchanged, apart from the cells. And again, that produced a very different display and subsequent poor result. I'm not saying I predicted a win against Man United. I guess what I'm saying is that Man United have had defensive problems, particularly in central defence, that in hindsight we could have exploited, or we could have at least targeted these weaknesses, or at least had a style of play to show an attempt of this. Man United would have gone into Saturday's game low on confidence, coming off such a heavy defeat. They have had their vulnerabilities, and they conceded within 2 minutes of the game. I guess we could have played in a way to build on that lead. Instead, what did we do? We retreated inexcusably after getting ahead. We sat back, we dropped deeper, we invited pressure with talent like Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and I guess a much improved Harry Maguire. Of course, they're going to take advantage of that. We went into the second half, it was 1-1, and Callum Wilson's chance, it felt like it was against the run of play. Did we look like a team that had just been told, push higher? No, not at all. Did it feel like we were adapting to deal with the pace of Man United's attack? Not at all. So it's clear there's not a solid, dependable starting lineup that can be copied and pasted for each game. It's a case of being flexible right now, I guess. I mean, there are so many different styles and systems in the Premier League at the moment, and I appreciate it's challenging being able to adapt to that, but tactical intellect, it plays a huge part in managerial duties, right? And if Steve Bruce doesn't exercise this week in, week out, it could prove detrimental to our Premier League campaign. Now let's take a closer look at team selection on a match-by-match basis. So Joelinton and Callum Wilson in the Burnley game, they worked really well together. Joelinton played well as a number 10 in a 4-4-1-1 in that game. So why did Steve Bruce put him in on the right against Man United? Bearing in mind he's most comfortable on the left, then also Almiron and Fraser, they came on far too late. Particularly Almiron, we could have done with his pace. I don't know what more Miggy can do to prove he's deserving of Premier League starts. I know it's been suggested with Fraser it had something to do with his fitness, but he had a great spell on national duty for Scotland. He scored the winner for them against Czech Republic. I think he got the man of the match in the Slovakia game. Also, why was Karl Darlow kept on when he was clearly injured? Gillespie would have been capable of filling in. I just didn't get that risk. With our beloved Dubravka out on injury, why risk it with Karl Darlow too when he's been such a valuable asset to the side? Anyways, lastly, let's move on to the stats for the Man United game. So we had 7 shots, 4 of them on target. And Man United, they registered 28 shots, 14 of them on target. We've been conceding far too many shots this season. Not all of them are finding the back of the net, but that's thanks to Karl Darlow being on top form. It's becoming sort of reminiscent of the reliance we've had on Martin Dubravka. And this isn't a good thing, Dubravka registered the most saves out of the whole Premier League last season. And now with Karl Darlow, he's made 86 stops since the start of the season. We're only a few weeks in. That's more than any other keeper in the league. I think over the past 18 months, our goalkeeper is a huge part of our squad, and this pressure, it needs to be eased. We shouldn't have to rely on our goalkeeper. This isn't sustainable, and as good as they are, we have to find a way to ease this pressure. It's funny because for some reason I thought of the way our squad has been revived and injected with new talent now. We're slowly moving away from our trademark Benitez defensive style. We should be looking to move beyond that. But before we even consider evolving, conceding that many shots certainly isn't reflective of progression. Against Spurs, we had 5 at the back. Caldano made 11 saves. I guess these worrying stats just demonstrate that the cohesion just isn't quite right. We're now at 7 Premier League home games without a clean sheet. The last time that happened was February 2014. To see us set up by Benitez so rigid and well drilled, and now, the defensive resilience isn't even there anymore. What worries me the most is the money spent on forwards. We have attacking options now, therefore we want to see improvements in our attacking football because we now have the means to do so. I think we've reached a chapter where we are ready to evolve in our style of play. We just don't have the systems in place to do that. And a lot of that comes down to how we form as an attacking unit, or at least to see some progress of some sort. Steve Bruce must find a way to get the most out of our players. Okay, enough of the Man United result. Let's finish by talking about the game this Sunday against Wolves. So thankfully, Karl Darlow is expected to be fit for it. What changes would I make against them? I would drop Jeff Hendrick for now. I think with the likes of Almiron and Fraser sitting on the bench, I don't think Hendrick's place in the starting 11 can be justified. He had a decent debut in the West Ham game, but since then he hasn't put up convincing displays in my opinion, and obviously I've made it clear the talent, pace and energy Miggy brings on the pitch. He deserves a start. I can't believe he's only made 1 league start this season. If I'm totally honest, I have felt deflated since Saturday's display and I'm just not able to shake it off. Normally I'm optimistic and I'm aware there are insane results at the moment in the Premier League, so I half don't know what to expect, but going into the Wolves game against the likes of Traore, Raul Jimenez, Ruben Neves, I am worried. On Monday, they beat Leeds 1-0, and I know it's only 1-0, but hey, the way Leeds have taken their Premier League promotion by storm, and this was their first home defeat in 12 games against all competitions. So Wolves were there to win, and they can be a lethal side. They've become the first Wolves side in Premier League history to win 3 of their opening 5 games, and Jimenez, he's the player I'm most worried about. He scored the winner in the Leeds game on Monday, and it was his 3rd goal from 5 games this season. In the Leeds game, he did make the most clearances, he gained possession 8 times, and he won 100% of his duels. So if our backline can't keep his attacking pressure at bay, we could be in for a haul. In a way, given how our results have gone so far this season, we could be in for a decent spell because we seem to do well after a defeat, and if we can bounce back, great, but I'd prefer we put up an improved display than get lucky how we have recently, like with the Spurs draw, for example. I think of all the issues I spoke about in this video, our conceded shots is an alarming trend right now. Our style of play, it can't be established overnight, and I know that. As much as I would love to see some positive attacking football on Sunday, I feel our defensive shortcomings should be a priority right now. If we can work on that for the Wolves game, I think it's a step forward. But like I said, I'm just not feeling too positive right now. We have fundamental issues that will destroy any chance of progressing this season. I apologise for not being my usual happy, chirpy self, but I'm frustrated we're still not able to formulate a system to get the best out of the talent we have now. I saw glimpses of it in the Burnley game, but then, a 4-1 defeat and a woeful display, it gave me a wake-up call, I guess. So, what do you guys reckon? How are you feeling going into the Wolves game? Do comment below. Thanks a lot for watching, and subscribe if you want. I would love your support to grow this channel. I'll see you next time.